We've got Mr. D.K. Joshi, who is Director and Chief Economist at CRISIL, now joining us on the show. D.K., your expectation, the CRISIL expectation in terms of what the inflation number could print in at?
Around 7%. I think, as was rightly pointed out, the base effect is having an impact, and I think one should also remember that the inflation is suppressed because the fuel price hike, which was expected for quite some time, hasn't happened as yet, and I think the global crude prices are not softening. I mean, actually, they could rather harden going ahead.
Mr. Joshi, what about yesterday's IIP number, 0.1%? Do you think that largely it was a non-event for the bond markets?
Well, I think IIP you've started taking with a pinch of salt now, because the numbers are very volatile and very fluctuating. But I think what it did indicate was a broad-based slowdown in industry. I think sectors like electricity, cement, which were doing well until recently, I think they have also started showing marked slowdown. So I think the industrial slowdown is broad-based right now. And I think it reconfirms what you were seeing from other indicators. Exports in July were down 14.8%. The GDP data released last month was showing that investment is flat and private consumption is slowing down very fast, and that gets reflected in the consumer goods segment in IIP. So I think very much in line with expectations.
Right, now, DK, everyone's pricing in a QE3 being announced later tonight. Now, if that were the case, would it mean all of you having to rework your inflation calculations to the extent that commodity prices are expected to significantly march up?
Well, I think there's a offsetting factor here also. I think the Chinese economy is slowing faster than expected, and also I think Europe is already is in recession, and so I think the weak growth will somewhat offset the impact of QE3. Yeah, but I think if depending on how China manages its slowdown and also the quantum of QE3, it could have some impact on commodity prices. I think let's wait for some more time to see, I think, the quantum as well as what happens in other economies.
And by
right
March
now commodity prices are...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying the commodity prices are actually are rather soft, I mean, in comparison to oil and gold prices.
Sure, and by March end, where do you see inflation at?
Well, I think our sense is that maybe somewhere closer to 7.5%.
Mr. Joshi, if we talk about expectations from the Reserve Bank of India, you heard our research analysts maintain that there are no rate cuts expected on Monday, but by December, majority are expecting a cut of 50 basis points. Would you also tilt towards that opinion?
Well, right now I think because I think going by what RBI, the guidance RBI has been giving in its previous policies and also I think in their speeches, I think it's very clear that unless there is some action from the government on the fiscal side, the RBI is not favorably disposed towards rate cuts. So I think that will continue for some more time, and I think maybe depending on how the global scenario pans out, I mean, if the weakness to global growth rises further, I think then we might say then the growth concerns will start overtaking inflation concerns, and I think in that scenario we could see some rate cut to protect the growth.
With respect to the need to revive the overall investment, do you think that perhaps all we need is some kind of government action in order to contain the fisc?
I think for the overall investment climate, I think a variety of things are needed, and I think they are pretty well known by now. I think one is that you have to quickly clear the projects. I think the governance issues are clearly holding on project clearances. So I think that is one aspect to be dealt with. Then I think what will quickly push up the growth is also or investment climate is also clarity on the taxation front. And also I think one should also mention here that some of the issues that have been plaguing for quite some time, like coal, etc., their availability to power sector, I think all those things, if you quickly address, I think that creates some upside to growth, not too much this year but more of next year. So I think this year the upside to growth is very limited. The only good news we have seen as far as the economy is concerned is from the monsoon side, and that also I think it brings only one cheer, because I think part of the damage to kharif crops was already done, and it's not possible to revive the Kharif production by the late rains. So some damage to agriculture does happen this year, but I think revival does bode well for the next season, and also it bodes well for hydropower generation, etc.